We still have about 4 minutes to go, so thank you for logging on early. We'll wait for everyone to come back on. And we'll start in about 4 minutes, but we have some time. Great to see you, Anton. Great to see you, Mayor.
Thank you. Hi, Michael. I'm gonna
Thanks, Don, for your comments in the chat. Another thing that we could recommend is if you wanted to open up your chat line, that is also going to be available for questions once we get started. James, thanks for your question in the chat box. No one's talking yet, so that's why you might not be able to hear anything.
Justin, can you hear me?
We're expecting.
I got a question. Please let me know when I'm allowed to speak.
I will, Jeff. We're going to get started in a little bit. We're still waiting for about 50 more people to sign on. So we're going to get
Thank
started
you.
in 1 minute.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Aloha. Good to see you all.
So it's 5:30 right now. My name is Della Albalati. Thank you all for coming on. As we get started, we're expecting people to just flow into this meeting. We had about 139, 140, I believe, registrations. And so this beautiful issue cloud that you see behind me was generated based off of all of your comments and already questions that you sent in. So we really appreciate that you signed on. We are here for a town hall, virtual town hall with State Senator Sharon Moriwaki, State Representative and House Speaker Scott Saiki, and the 15th Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, Mayor Rick Blangiardi. So thank you all for joining on. Our agenda is very simple. We're going to have some opening remarks from our featured speakers. Then we're going to have an update on homelessness, since we know so many of you are interested in that issue. We have with us Anton Kreki from the City and County of Honolulu and Scott Morishige from the state of Hawaii. And then we will open up to questions. So we've put in a lot of time into this to reserve 4 questions for you. We will start now with our opening remarks, and we're going to start with Senator Sharon Moriwaki. Senator.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for coming with the numbers and with the homeless stretched across behind Representative Velati's back. We know that this is the most important issue for our not only our county, but the state. And I want to really acknowledge Anton Kreki and Scott Morishige, who have been really leaders for us, and we really support what they're doing. We have been meeting, as you know, all across our district. We've already started a conversation, Speaker Saiki and myself, on homelessness from a Kalimo'ili'ili area, and we're hoping to build that into our all our efforts. So everybody working together, state and county, it takes a village. And so I'm so pleased that so many of you are here to join us today, and hope that we can continue the conversation. But thank you, Della. I'll turn it back to you. And thank you, Mayor, for answering. You're going to answer lots of questions. I can see everybody jumping at the bit.
Thank you. Before you get some questions and comments, I wanted to refer you folks to the chat box, as well as look at the bottom of your screen if there's a reaction, so you can raise your hand function if that's available to you on your Zoom. Again, my name is Della Albalati, and I'm happy to be the moderator for this. I serve with the next speaker, Speaker Scott Saiki. We are neighboring representatives, so I hail from the great city of Makiki, right next to you all in Kaka'ako. Speaker Saiki, opening remarks from you.
Hey, thanks, Stella. I wanted to thank all of the residents who have joined our town hall meeting tonight. As we have been talking with more and more residents, we've heard a lot of concerns, and one thing that we had noticed was that some of these concerns are areas that we work on together with the city. So we approached Mayor Blangiardi and asked him if he could, be a part of a town hall, and he just said yes right off the bat. He was just perfectly willing to do this, and so we want to thank the mayor for really partnering with us at the legislature. I think we have a very positive working relationship, and I hope that residents who are on the call tonight will see that we are working very closely with the mayor and with the city to try to resolve these issues. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Speaker, for getting us started. So our next speaker, Mayor Rick Blangiardi, for a few opening remarks. And so
okay, I'll try to stay brief, but first of all, I also want to thank everyone for being on this call tonight. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Also, especially am pleased to do it because as Speaker Saiki just said, and Senator Moriwaki, in acknowledging not only Anton, but his work with Scott, the collaboration that we're trying to forge here in state and city working together to solve problems might come as a surprise or certainly seem unprecedented to many, but this is the way it ought to be. And that's what we believe in. That's what we're trying to get done. But none of the problems we're facing are easy or can be solved overnight. I hope that people tonight will understand that, but we are precisely about that. And that's what we came into office to do. And I can't think of a better topic to kick it off tonight than to discuss homelessness, which is why I've asked Anton to join us tonight, especially because I get asked all the time on this single issue. And we thought I'd have our guy who's in charge of this program, what it represents a real complete pivot for us on what's been done historically and what we really believe in is going to make a difference going forward. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. And we'll just turn it right over to Anton, who is the city's new Office of Housing and Homelessness Coordinator. Thank you, Anton, for taking on this tough job. I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll follow it up with Scott Morishige.
Thank you, Della. The issues that we're talking about are just, they're close to all of us. I mean, it's in our communities, it's everywhere around us. And so the approach that we're taking in this administration is trying to analyze what are the key levers that we can do to address homelessness. And so the first thing is really trying to understand that a person that is homeless, that is not a crime, right? A crime is a crime, but being homeless isn't a crime. And a person who's homeless, when we're approaching them, we're always offering them services, but they can decide to take services or do nothing, right? And that's the frustrating part, I think, for all of us. And it's very important for us to understand that you can't take laws and target people like target homeless, right? So the key becomes, how can you analyze that decision of take services or nothing and create more scenarios, right? How can you create more scenarios so that decision point can fall towards somebody, whether it's housing or in a shelter or rehabilitation, moving along in a different direction, moving this way when they're homeless and turning that around and moving this way. So I'll just say as an opening, that piece in analyzing our resources is really what we do. And, you know, Scott and I work very closely together. Every week we have a one-on-one meeting where we discuss both small issues that we need to address, and then we talk about larger strategies. And one of the things that the city has done is housing first was always the mantra. And that's sort of the HUD program to put people in housing. And it's a very, very respected program, and it works a lot, and it works well for us. And later I'll talk about some of the statistics that we have. But that being said, we also need to have shelters, shelter space, and transitional housing. And the state had some foresight, because I think that the funding that they put together for Ohana zones were very helpful. And one of the city programs that Ohana Zone is funding, that the state is funding, is the HONU program, where these are the triage shelters that we have, and now we have two of them. One is at KE Lagoon, and the other one is in Whitmore. But they stay in places for about 90 days, and we're going to move them around. So I would say that that's a case where the state had the funding foresight and turned it into a program that offered us more beds and more shelters.
So Scott, maybe that's a warm handoff to you, speaking about the Ohana Zones project. And I know the legislature 2 years ago funded that. And so we're very fortunate to have that program through the pandemic. Can you speak to homelessness from the state perspective, Scott?
Yes, no, thank you for the introduction and for letting me be part of this presentation tonight. Like Anton said, and I think others have said, it's no one agency or office can tackle the issue of homelessness alone. I think it really takes everybody working together, state and city, and also in partnership with the community. I think, you know, I personally am very grateful for the appropriation legislature for $30 million for Ohana Zones a few years ago. It's allowed us to do some great things, not just on Oahu with the HONU program that Anton talked about, but it's also contributed to permanent housing projects statewide, specifically targeting people coming out of homelessness. So helping homeless families with children, homeless seniors, and also victims, survivors of domestic violence to get out of the situation of homelessness and to a place of stability. And we're actively working to try and bring online more programs like that. We're working right now to bring on additional permanent housing targeted for homeless individuals out at Kalailoa. We're working with the city and county to identify vacant land that could be used for future projects like this. And we're also partnering in other ways as well. We recognize that one of the biggest challenges that people who are homeless face is access to mental health and substance abuse treatment services. So another thing we did from the state side over the past year is we brought up something called the Hawaii Cares Line. It's a 24-hour number that people can access any time of day or night. And you can get connected to a crisis mobile outreach worker. If you need, you can get connected to stabilization beds or crisis shelter. And that's just another piece of the puzzle. Like Anton said, he and I talk together every week. I also work with all of the other leaders on the call today. And I think we're all actively committed to really taking this issue of homelessness head on. And the last thing I'll say when we talk about the issue of homelessness, we need to remember homelessness at its core is an issue about people. It's not about an issue about someone else or people who are other than us. A lot of times people think homelessness is something that doesn't happen to people like us. That's simply not true. A story I often share is one of the reasons why I got into this work is I had a very close friend growing up in elementary school times. There's a local Japanese middle-class kid just like myself. We're really close friends in elementary school, then we lost touch. When I saw him again later as an adult, he had fallen in really hard times and ultimately ended up passing away. And then I found out later he had fallen into homelessness, and his situation was so similar to mine that part of why he ended up in the situation he did was because his father passed away unexpectedly after he graduated high school. And that happened to me as well. And but for circumstance, I could have ended up in that same place. I think what we need to remember when we think about homelessness is these are people who, are our friends and neighbors in the community. It's an issue that it's a situation that can happen to anyone. So I think we need to be mindful of that as we look at how we take this issue head on and really tackle the issue of homelessness with respect and compassion for the people who've fallen into this situation. But thank you again for letting me be part of the discussion tonight.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Della, I just want to say, I want to ask Anton just to give you, to complement what Scott just said, just a little bit specific about our core plan outreach services that we're going to be providing, which is a real pivot. We decided to remove the police from being the tip of the spear, if you will, in dealing with homelessness, which was really the model on the compassionate disruption, which we knew systemically didn't address the real needs and or alleviate the problem. Honestly, even though I only been in office for 6 months, I've been working with on this problem for 10 years myself at Hawaii News Now. Was very compelled to run for mayor in part because of frustrations with the homeless situation. We knew there were alternative strategies, things that were working elsewhere, but we needed to be able to set that up, implement that, and really approach it in a way that we felt could make a significant difference. Because I know based on what people are writing in, there's lots to talk about tonight. It's not all on homelessness, but I would like Anton just to share a little bit so people can hear specifically along with what Scott just said about the very deliberate things we're doing. And it's not just rhetoric. We're very action oriented here on what we intend to make happen. So,
okay. So again, it's about that decision that someone makes on the street. And the CARES line is a very receiving line that then engages a lot of good services. But the city has a responsibility for crisis outreach when a 911 call. And so what we're going to do is we have a program that's going to divert some of the 911 calls where it's really a homeless individuals having a crisis in the street, and we can address it. Other cities, we've researched this, other cities do it, and it really has an effect. One is it makes the police more productive because they can do some of the things that they need to do because these calls get diverted. And because of the type of individuals we have involved, we have some successes on the street is what we're looking for, that decision to engage in a stabilization bed, rehabilitation, or housing. So what CORE is, CORE stands for Crisis Outreach, Response, and Engagement. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a diverted 911 call, right? A specially branded truck. So if someone's being approached, they're not being approached by a uniformed police officer. We might have police in the background to assess whether it's a safe situation, but this group will have more time to address an individual on the street. They'll have capabilities for mental health, medical capabilities, and outreach services. And they're going to be really at the pinnacle of touching this individual, trying to build trust, trying to get them to make a better decision, and then also doing a good handoff to things like the CARES line, right? They could even, like where we pick someone up today and they're quickly taken to Queens, right? They stabilize for an hour or two and they're right back on the street. CORE can spend time with that individual, spend time understanding what they need. When you really are trying to make somebody make a better decision, you not only, it's not just about what they need, it's about what they want, because people make decisions based on what they want. And so this group will have the capabilities and the expertise and the time, whereas an emergency services ambulance has to leave, police, they have to leave, they can spend more time. So we're going to brand a couple of trucks. We're going to start off in urban Honolulu, right? And we'll have these capabilities. Our emergency services group is going to run it through the dispatch system, right? And these people are going to be the first 911 response to homeless situations, and then engage the rest of the services that we have into the process. So that's CORE. We're putting it up now with the funding coming in. The trucks will be getting ready, and I expect either by the end of the summer, it'll be August, September, we'll be out on the street. We're going to be headquarters in Evil A, and we'll be executing it from there.
We actually repurposed 2 old ambulances, which is actually going to provide a relief to our EMS system. And as Anton just said, and the emergency rooms at our hospitals too were flooded, very costly, and well-intended medical people working diligently to provide the kinds of services, but not like this, and not not what the end result that we anticipate we're going to be able to get. So that, along with a whole lot of other stuff, home has already been mentioned, and some of the other initiatives. It's a much more aggressive, but a much more humane approach. And to Scott's point about, the homeless could be us. We want to approach it that way. It's going to be about trust, dignity. We know we've got some terrible situations that we are going to use the police to enforce with respect to illegal behaviors that have gone on in drug dealing, lewd behaviors that we know, people being physically threatened, et cetera. We're going to approach all of that. We'll be making some announcements very shortly. I might even talk about that tonight because we're about to do something major in Chinatown. If anybody's on the call tonight is from Chinatown, we're going to be making that announcement with Chief Vanek here very shortly, and we're ready to deploy. Well, I'll just say it right now, we're going to have 24/7 from now through the end of the year, 4 shifts of 6 police officers every shift that we've not had with a real specific purpose in Chinatown. That's an incredible increase compared to what was there before. We've asked for experienced officers, which we'll have, and we're going to be in the business of law enforcement too, to protect our residents, business owners, and the customers as well, because we really believe that having that police presence will deter a lot of the kinds of things that are going on right now. Because if you've gone down there, there's just, we're going to take Chinatown back, for want of a better way to say it, because what's going on is not acceptable. And we know that. So it's a combination of all of this, but it's an aggressivity, if you will, towards this problem with an intelligence and a game plan that we don't think heretofore has existed. I'm going to say it again, and work in collaboration with the state. I love the fact that Anton and Scott have been able to combine resources. I thank the Ledge for what they've done. The city's not without resources. We have ARP money coming in as well, and we're going to really put a lot of muscle into this problem. So that's the last thing I'll say about it.
One comment I'd make is we took time and were careful to build core. And in doing that, when we came to the table, not only did we have the city departments there, but we had 2 folks from the state. Scott was one of them, and Eddie Merceru from behavioral health. So we had state individuals at a city table helping design a city system, right, program. And then we had community leaders, we had providers, and we also had 2 individuals that experienced homelessness. So they were the people that were giving us advice on the approach methods and how we would do things in a way that gives us the best chance for success. Again, trying to make somebody make that decision where we can get them into the system.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Del, can I add something really quickly? Just want to acknowledge what the mayor and Anton just mentioned about the core program. About 10 years ago, after the Wall Street collapse, the state government experienced severe budget cuts, and one of the areas that was cut was mental health programs. And so we lost the ability to help people individually, one-on-one, who are on the street. So I think this core program is really important. Sounds very hopeful because you're basically going to restore individualized services to people who are on the streets and who need help.
Thank you, Speaker, for that insight. And really, this core program sounds like the mobile units that we've been talking about, but we really needed the partnership of city and state together. So this is really fascinating. I want to open it up to questions, but to our 94 participants, I just want you to remind you, we want to be civil and respectful. I'm going to kind of pick folks out. So Wendell Lee, you had the very first question about homelessness, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask your question. Mr. Lee, if you can turn on your.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. I live near Kapolani Boulevard, and the residents of Symphony are afraid to walk around at night because the homeless literally are lying on the sidewalks. And we've had resident advisors quit because we have to escort so many homeless every night off our property. One has even set fire to the sofas in our porte cochere. And at 1:30 in the morning, and nothing is being done. These folks literally camp out on the sidewalks with, I have tremendous compassion for them, but when it makes the entire community fear walking around in safety, something has to be done. And this is just not right. Hawaii is supposed to be a safe environment. We should be able to walk our streets without fear of somebody yelling at us or approaching us. And many of them, and I've talked to them, are from the mainland. And it's really discouraging to deal with this situation. And it's been a decade now and nothing has happened. And that's the frustration, I think, of our community is, yeah, we understand there are rights, but we have rights too. We need to be safe on our streets and not have people lying down in the middle of the sidewalk thinking that it's theirs and yelling at us because we just want to walk around on our sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I think you're expressing some really real frustrations. Anton, did you want to speak to that? And I think I heard in there that Mr. Lee is around the Symphony area and is concerned about you know, the issues that of seeing people on the streets and not getting the help they need.
I understand the way that it's worded and appreciate it. And as a citizen, you know, I have certain feelings too about the folks that I might not feel safe around and such. But again, you know, being homeless isn't a crime. And so where we've gotten ourselves in this situation is because we take some laws and then you target homeless with it, which is what a lot of people want you to do. And that's the wrong way to go about it, right? The law is a law. You have to address it across the board. And that's why we've been reeled in on some of these things. But the key is addressing that individual. It's one at a time. And you want to create different scenarios that you can get that decision to go into a system. And so, you know, we talked about CORE, we talked about, you know, outreach every time we go, the police department going out with outreach, their community policing teams, again, trying to get that person to make a better decision, right? One of the other things that we're doing, it won't be on Kapiolani Boulevard right now, but we're gonna embark on a weed and seed program. And the basis of that program, and we're gonna do it in Kali'i and Chinatown, is Prosecutor Aum is behind this, and he did this when he was U.S. attorney. And the concept here is that if someone commits a crime, then they forfeited some of their civil rights that we talked about, that decision on the street. And so if someone's committed a crime, then we can address by arresting that person and say, hey, we can prosecute you, or you could choose services and probation. And so he's had a lot of positive effects with that. And so again, that's going to be a program we're going to start. We're doing a survey right now in the community to kind of get the most important knowledge out of the different issues they have.
What about
embark on this? So
a lot of the people that have come here with the intention to be a vagrant, the out of state that come here, they live here on purpose because they hear that Waikiki is, or say Hawaii period, is a no-go to jail state. You can do whatever you wish. You're not going to go to jail. You can go live under a tree. Food comes from the ocean. Food falls from the trees. You get 3 meals a day from the church. You get general assistance. You get food stamps. And they absolutely, emphatically refuse help. I have a friend in Venice Beach now who's with the sheriff's office. And what they're doing in Venice Beach is the same thing. If you refuse help in front of an officer of the law or a representative of the state of any sort, then you forfeit your rights to be in that area. You cannot just come here and say, I'm vagrant, I choose this. If me and my family cannot camp on the beach, and me and my family cannot live on a rock wall in Waikiki, then why is it okay for people to come from out of state and do the same? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. White. We're gonna, does anyone with, Scott, would you like to take that question? Scott Moriwaki, about the issue of people from out of state. And then I really wanna, we have a line of people lined up. We have Lynn, Vaz, and then Jacob. So Scott Moriwaki, if you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, so, you know, there are people who do come from out of state to Hawaii and end up homeless here. But I think by and large, the majority of people experiencing homelessness here, what we see in the data and what I've seen firsthand when I go into homeless encampments, is the majority of people experiencing homeless here are local people that were born and raised in Hawaii, or people who had some type of close family tie to Hawaii. With that being said, I think, you know, with the situation that was described near the Symphony, I think there are things that we can do on the ground level to help respond. So Senator Moriwaki and Speaker Saiki a couple weeks ago hosted a community meeting for people in the Makalima Ili area. And part of that was identifying solutions, how we can partner with the police, partner with other agencies to establish, a business security watch, a citizens patrol, to give police more information about the activities that are occurring. If there are illegal activities, criminal activities, having more information helps the police be able to better respond. The other thing I would say is if you see situations like that and you're not sure what government agency to call or who to follow up with, you can always call my office, 586-0193. You can email us at gov.homelessness@hawaii.gov, and we can be accountable in helping you follow up who's the right agency or social service provider. There are things that we can do to work with the security from the building.
Can we
To
get
make sure we can
a
get
little more
more information to have
protection in
targeted
the Waikiki
services
area
for those
as
individuals.
for the police?
Okay. If you want to provide more information to me directly to follow up after, like I said, I gave you the contact information for my office, and we can follow up in more detail later on. I know, like Rep. Bellotti said, I think there's many people who have questions, so we want to make sure that everybody has time to answer their questions and share their concerns.
I just want to add to that, that if you could, Scott, put it in chat, your phone number, because Scott and Anton are working really closely together. So a lot of people don't know what kinds of services are out there, and there really are a lot, and they can hook you up to the right people. So if you can look on the chat, Scott is a fount of information on services and
Yeah, let me just, I'm just going to add one other thing here. And for all that we've said tonight about strategy and the humanity of it all and the approach, we're also, as I just alluded to with Chinatown, a very deliberate effort there. But across the board, I can tell
I'm
you,
just wondering if
Managing
you
Director-
people understand how many fugitives from the mainland come here.
well, what I wanted to say is that we're going to actually engage in a lot more tough love with our police department as well. We're not going to use the police as tip of the spear with compassionate disruption of programs. We're still doing sanitation cleanups. We're not pushing people around, knowing it's not addressing the systemic needs. But as far as any kind of illegal behavior or behaviors that just even threaten people, we've had very different conversations. We are now without a police chief. We are now short some 300 plus opening positions. And that's not even meant to be an excuse, but I can tell you the interim chief Vanek and managing director Formby and myself had some really strong conversations that are very different than we've had with the prior chief. So we're also going to incorporate that in the mix too. I just don't want to say too much of that right now, except to let you know we understand what's being said here about people feeling threatened and about criminal behaviors. And that involves not just burning sofas at Symphony, but drug dealing and other kinds of things that need to be addressed and addressed head on with the police.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Lynn Mariano, followed by Vaz, and then Jacob. And please ask the questions very briefly because we're going to run out of time if you don't. Go ahead, Lynn.
Good evening, Senator Moriwaki, Speaker Saiki, and Mr. Mayor. Thanks for bringing us all together. I'll just try to keep this really short because I just finished my stint on the neighborhood board number 11. And this has been a compassion of mine, and I'd be willing to help out Anton, as you folks move forward. But I think the core competence that been frustrating all of the residents in the area, not just in our neighborhood board, but it's all of Oahu. We have to stop this game of whack-a-mole. I like that you're going to do something in Chinatown, but all those homeless in Chinatown are going to come into our area and vice versa. So we need to probably do a collective thing. Part of the issue, the underlying issue is, we need to fix the laws, the city ordinance, and then also laws, and then put that on a book so that things can be done. For example, at the neighborhood board, there's been lots of residents' concerns about homeless, particularly like in the Marigold area. And the police has said that they can't do it because of this law. they can't do it because of that law, and so on and so forth. And then it becomes a private company that
Yeah.
needs to fix it. And then the other thing is, as we continue, I think the programs that you folks have in place, I think is awesome. But we need to, and I think some of the concerns some of our residents have, is that we're enabling some of these homeless to do the right thing to stay homeless. So I think we need to kind of do that. And so when I see homeless out there, I have compassion. I want to help them out. I want to give them money and all that. But I think with the core program that you're instituting, if you could add another portion in there, and that is job training, because some of these homeless may not have good education or skills. And then if we can use them and give them training to do different jobs, or even some other jobs like cutting the grass along the freeway, or cleaning the yards at the schools
My
or something.
question is simple.
Okay,
Why
And
are we
so,
paying the
excuse-
homeless to stay homeless? With general
Excuse me,
relief,
Mr. Lloyd, I have
general
the floor.
assistance, food stamps, they're out of state, they come here, they hear that we
Okay,
give all this away for free.
Mr.
Why
White,
can't we stop
Can you
this?
delete him?
If you come here
Mute
on
him.
purpose to be homeless, you do not get general assistance.
So going back to my point, I'd be happy to kind of help to try to craft something so that the core program can be expanded to allow training, particularly those that need the help. And then if there's something with substance abuse or mental illness, then they're given the proper treatment, to get some help. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing what we can do rather than giving lip service.
Yeah, well, let me just say,
Yes.
as far as whack-a-mole, I think what you were alluding to is what wasn't working before, compassionate disruption of literally moving. We're out of that game. Secondly, and this is why I brought up our conversations with Chief Vanek, we don't buy into the fact that a lot of this stuff that the police said they couldn't do, there were laws against. We have a very different approach and philosophy on that. We understand where the laws lie, but we think we could be a lot tougher. That's why I said about tough love, a lot tougher. We plan on being that. So
Yeah.
we'll just let the actions speak for themselves. I'm really reluctant because we've been setting up everything to say too much, but we just sort of know what has to happen. It's not going to get cured overnight. It's the most complex problem you can imagine. But layer by layer, we're going to address it. The problem, Mr. Mariano, that's driving everybody crazy is homelessness has now become so pervasive. It's in so many different neighborhoods in different places. And I know we're talking to people tonight from a certain district, but I can assure you, if we were on an island-wide call, we'd be hearing about it all over the place. So this is not a small undertaking. The good news is it's a scalable problem. We've probably estimated about 3,000 people who are unsheltered of the 6,000 who are homeless. We think in time, with the right approach, we can take a big bite out of that. And I just ask for your patience, and we'll see what happens. To the man that keeps cutting in about the people that get sent over here, there's not a lot we can do to stop that. But it's not, I go back to what Scott said, the majority of people here are local people. And we've known that, and that's fact. So we shouldn't lose sight of that as we deal with that other element.
So I'm going to make sure that we kind of also core and then the enforcement issues that we're talking about. The enforcement issues really they're not a homeless strategy because, like you said, that moves people around. But we do need to clean up parks. We do need to clean up our sidewalks. So you're going to continue to see cleanup activity like that. But we don't fool ourselves that it's our homeless strategy in doing that. And CORE itself will be that first crisis engagement with an individual, but it would then hand somebody off into training if we could get them to say, yes, they do training, the job training. So it has a map, if you will, the same map that Scott works off of, so that we can get the different services that people both need and, again, want, because if they don't want it, you can't force them into it. But your point about job training, because whatever, we have people that were painters for 20 years and now they're out of jobs and they become homeless, right? And they need to be retrained to another job. We also have a lot of homeless, and I was just in Waianae, and a lot of the folks there, their families live there, but they've been kicked out of their house. right? Whether it's drug use or family abuse or something like that. And we have other districts that are like that. So the homeless situation is very complex. And we get closer to it because that's our job to be closer to it. But just know that we're dealing with a lot of different type of issues like that.
Yeah, we're also working on potential of 3 different communities that along the lines of what Dwayne Carisu and the folks at Saiki did. We're looking at 3 different, one is in Nimitz, one's in Waimanau, another one out of Waianae that we're looking at doing, because I think part of what has to happen with the outreach and the services is a place to take people. So that's also what's going on, in case anybody's wondering. We're just not going to be pushing them from one street to the other. So,
and each of those situations have engaged a sense of leadership with people that are homeless. So those people will go. They'll make that decision. Again, creating situations where that decision has more of a positive spin to it than do nothing.
Thank you.
I have a question for Scott and Anton, because the legislature funded the Honu Ohana Zone program a couple of years ago. Is there a need for, are you going to need more funding? Are funds running out?
So the current funding for the Honu, I think, is that our contract right now is set to expire in May of 2022. We're in discussion with the city and county how we can look at sustainability of that program. The Honu plays a very critical part in our homeless system, and especially during the past pandemic, it helped provide additional extra shelter capacity, increased shelter capacity when some of our congregate shelters had to reduce bed space. So it's a critical component, but Anton and I are in close conversation and looking at the long-term sustainability of that.
Thank you for that update. So we have a question from Baz, followed by Jacob, and we do have a lot of people, so please make your questions brief.
Right. Thank you for hosting this event. And, you know, I just want to say part of the thing that would really help the homeless situation is cleaning up the streets here physically, such as all these parked cars, which act as a blockade for a lot of these homeless. There's Kaimani Street, which I included as an attachment in the chat room, where, I kid you not, the homeless people have set up paintings on the wall, and they set up a sleep mattress, and you name it, they got it over there. It's a mini Chaz City, that Chaz City in Seattle. We have it on Kaimani Street. And I think a quick solution to that would be just make it a no parking zone over there, and they quickly don't have cover anymore. I think a lot of these places just make it a no parking zone, and you'll quickly see visibility more transparent again. And a lot of these homeless people will vacate these areas, because right now they have the privacy working for them. And, you know, that leads me to my next question.
I have a question. How come they haven't removed?
You know, that leads me to my next question, which, you know, I know we reclaimed that land from the Chun brothers, but it would be great to start seeing no parking zones and sidewalks being built up and all those cars being removed to have visibility. I mean, is there, I know funds are kind of an issue for the state, but is there some sort of timeline? Speaker Saiki?
Why don't we remove the newsstands and the?
Take a look at it. Right?
yeah, we'll
Take
take
a look at it.
Speaker Saiki.
I'm just
Yeah,
curious. Why
We're
not?
working with the mayor on the transition of the Kakako private roads. I think that the city may take some more responsibility in maintenance, but you know, we stand ready at the legislature to assist the city with that.
I think that's a combination, the city and state, the Department of Transportation and the Department of Transportation Services, the city, working together on like the sidewalk repair and getting the streets up to standard. So you're absolutely right. The need for having the visibility, but also the repairs of the roads, and that is a long-term
Why don't we
solution. But
remove?
we are working in that direction.
Oh yeah, and you know, it just creates blind spots because, you know, some person might be willing to jump another person because they're hiding and taking cover behind these cars. So I personally think that having a quick solution, and probably the least costly for the state, would would be just making all these places no parking and building sidewalks on streets like Kaimani. That would be the most cost effective.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anton said that they might look into how they can use parking strategies. Next up is Jacob. Jacob, if you want to ask your question very quickly.
Aloha. Is it all right if I change the subject away from homelessness for a little bit?
Yep.
Yes.
So we got a couple of big projects coming down that are going to affect really the whole Ala Moana area. We've got the rail project going on, which is continuing debacle. And we've got the Ala watershed management project, which seems to be stalled. I was wondering if any of our city and state leaders could address what's going on with those and if we're going to get them finished in a somewhat timely manner. Thank you.
Okay, well, just today we signed documents with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're going to begin a feasibility study. We've been working on this since we got in office, because as we came into office, actually before we even sworn in December, we had a meeting, and we were told at that time that the project, as it was known at that time, and it had been planned on and worked on for nearly 6 or 7 years, it had become so pricey, so costly, that the Army was not going to continue. The price had gone from $375 million up to $624 million. And so, make a long story short, in all these many months in consultation with the Army Corps of Engineers and our Washington group, they're going to conduct a study. We think it's going to take somewhere between 1 to 2 years. To me, the Ala flood mitigation project is a project that has to happen. If you think what just happened in Miami with that building collapsing is appalling and disturbing, and it very much so it is, the threat to Waikiki and flooding on a going forward basis is absolutely something that has to be addressed, and we're determined to do that. So that's where we're at with that. As far as the rail in Waikiki, or you're talking about the Ala Moana area, I don't think that's a problem for the time being, and that's a long range thing, but we are really determined to try to see what we can get done as quickly as possible on the LOI flood mitigation project. I think it's going to be a complete redo. They learned a lot from the mistakes of the past, what went wrong, and that's why they're doing a new study. So just, we're going to do it as best we can.
Well, this is where you come to get the news. Thank you, Mayor, for that announcement. We have next Jeff Ling, followed by Don Ariyoshi and then Robert Clayton.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I know we've got a homeless problem. I mean, they're all over the place. I'm a resident of Kekilohana. I see them up and down Ilaniwai, Halakawila, Queen Street, Kamani, and they defecate, they urinate, they try to open up, some of them try to open up doors of all the cars and businesses. But I think we've got an even more dire problem right on Ilaniwai at the entrance to the Kekilohana building. It's the home of over 1,000 residents. We've got over 425 cars going in and out, and we are trapped. We're trapped by all fronts. It's our only way of getting in and out of the building. Traffic's a nightmare coming in from Ward Avenue up to our entrance, from Cook Street coming into our entrance, from Queen and Kamani Street that Vaskin spoke about, right up into our front entrance. Our backs are shut off. We can't escape to the back. It just seems like every now and then the stars align, but now we got dark stars. We've got circumstances, events, situations where a lot of people are rushed. People trying to move in and out, customers for longs, people from across the street, the vendors going
Ask
into
who can address
and
the
pulling
empty
it out.
news.
It's an accident waiting to happen. And I'm begging.
Jeff, excuse me, Mr. Ling, is this the normal traffic, or you're trapped because of some other circumstances? I'm trying to understand the problem. Is it just, there's just a heavy flow of traffic, or is there something else happening that's causing that?
Certain times of the day it escalates. I've got pictures, I've got videos. That was once a 2-lane, 2-direction street. Our neighbors to the north, they parked their cars perpendicular to Ilaniwai so that their vehicles are sticking out, encroaching into the road, into the lane, possibly cutting off 1/3 or 1/2 of the street, making it another hazard. Some people take it as a shortcut coming in from Ward Avenue to turn into Ilaniwai.
Yeah.
And like you said, when the vendors are there, when the garbage truck is trying to empty all the dumpsters, when more vendors of lawns are going in and out of that building, we're trapped over there. It's a high traffic area, a lot of young and elderly people too. I've got a picture of that street as my background, if you can see it.
Yep.
I got another picture too. How about this one? This is Kamani Street, trying to get into our only entrance. This is a time when it gets real dangerous. It's not 24/7, Mr. Mayor, but certain times everything converges. I think this is a little bit more dire than the homeless problem for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I think we're gonna take note of that, and I think it's a very specific area problem, and maybe the mayor can take that back to some of his team with the streets, the DTS.
Yeah.
potentially.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We'll look into it. If you consult, let me just real quick, if you consulted with the developer of your building about the situation? I'm just curious.
The board of directors has consulted with the developer, the contractor, and legal counsel. That's in progress.
Okay.
But it's more than that. It takes someone like yourself, Mr. Mayor.
I promise you're going to look into it. I promise we will get, and I don't know when we'll have the chance to get back to you, but we will get back to you.
Thank you. I am grateful for all of us.
Could I add to Jeff real quick? I'll be less than 30 seconds, sorry. If we could get cops to enforce just the basic parking rules, people park in front of fire hydrants, people don't even park 4 feet away. I mean, this is Calcutta. It's a mess.
Okay. Thank you, Vaz.
Thank you.
We have Don Ariyoshi next, Robert Clayton, Eduardo Owen, and then Joanne. I've noticed in the chat line. So go ahead, Don.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I just want to say that, I think what we're hearing is frustrations from the public because there has not been anybody addressing these issues the way it's being addressed now. I gotta say this, Mayor, you've been in there for 5 months. You got over 3.5 more years, and you come out with a program like this that I think is very proactive. And I like what I'm hearing because not only do I hear you saying it, I see the legislature in a joint call with you. I haven't seen this for decades. And you know what? This is good. And you know what? HPD likes this core program. I really want to get away from talking about what the issues are with homelessness because I know you guys know it because it's been here for how many decades. You guys know it. You guys are addressing it. And the HPD likes this core program. But you know what? My dad, who's former Governor Ariyoshi, said that government cannot solve issues all by itself. It needs partnerships with the community. What this program does is it opens up opportunities, just like the man from the neighborhood board said he wants to help. I'm also with my community, I'm going to help. It opens up opportunities for partnerships to join the city. And I think this is a great way to start and go and terrific. I just want to say thank you with this coordinated effort with the county and with the legislature. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Don. Appreciate that.
In talking about that concept of community partnership and willing to help is we've issued 300 vouchers for housing right away. And we've been really pushing those vouchers and we've had over, so we talked about moving people around and yet the term whack-a-mole or something like that. But we've housed over 200 people with this program thus far. And we still have a couple hundred vouchers to go. The only thing that'll slow this program down is not having landlords that will accept people in housing that can take the vouchers. And so we need the community to be accepting of these vouchers that we're putting out so we can house these people because that's what gets them off the street. So we also, like Don was saying there, we need your help, right? So
the other thing I'll tell you, I'm really proud of, if I can say it, I'm not here to tout, this is not about me, it's about our team. But we've been in the business of distributing monies through the rent utility relief program. We were initially awarded between the federal and state 114 million, looks like it's be 180 million. We're working closely with two charities, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement and Catholic Charities. nonprofits to help us in the distribution of funds along with First Hawaiian Bank. Anyway, make a long story short, this is a mitigation plan to stop people from getting evicted. We initially targeted at 38% AMI. We're now up to 80% AMI. We are now in the business of giving out almost $1 million a day. We're very close to that. And just last week, Honolulu was ranked #1 in the country of all US cities in the distribution of these funds. I am so proud of our team. That is a mitigation effort to stop even further homelessness that I'm just saying on behalf of what we're trying to do. This is complex. It has been years in the making. I appreciate what Don said, but I'm just asking everybody to understand that there's no simple answer. There's no silver bullet. It's not just core. It's a lot of stuff. And we do need police involvement. I've said it a couple of times tonight, and I'll say it again. We think we're in for a different era of police work when it comes to dealing with people breaking the law, whether it's parking all over the place or other places that we intend to be tough with, as well as being humane in the areas we need to be. I just want people to understand that.
I'd like to underscore the Section 8 housing that that Anton alluded to. I think it's really important when you talk about the community coming together and working with government. These Section 8 vouchers are really great because it's long-term housing, and that's what we're lacking as well. So if you have an empty apartment unit, if you've got housing, that's what we're missing, because there are a number of homeless. Not all of them are with mental illness or substance abuse or offenders. There are people really looking for housing, and I think that that's been a big problem of not having enough landlords to open up their units so that they can have homeless who want housing to have housing. And Section terrific program, federal aid to the state.
You're right, Sarah. That's right.
Thank you for highlighting the city, county, and the state partnerships that continue to be a theme in this town hall meeting today. So next up, Robert Clayton, followed by Eduardo. Robert, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for holding the virtual town meeting. My name is Robert Clayton. I'm a homeowner in the Ala Moana area. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the use of various means of transportation operating on sidewalks. Operation of bicycles, segways, scooters, skateboards, both conventional and motorized, operating on sidewalks show total lack of respect for pedestrians walking on those sidewalks. In a number of cases, these devices approaching from the rear give no warning, fail to stop or slow down, and cause pedestrians to be bumped into by the rider's action. Additionally, this problem is compounded by the poor condition of the sidewalks, and frequently the area immediately adjacent to the sidewalk has drop-offs where soil has been eroded and with exposed tree roots. It's just, I'm one of those more senior people, and we don't get out of the way quite as fast as a bicycle or a motorized vehicle. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and just as a matter of course, we've heard this before. We're trying to do what we can on it. Motorized vehicles on sidewalks is prohibited, and the segways are allowed to happen. Apparently, that was already an existing law, but this is not the first time we've heard about that. And I understand what you're saying, and we're going to see what we can do about it. I think it's become a problem. I've seen it myself a lot. So,
and Mr. Clayton, the legislature in May did approve, I think Della and Sharon, did we approve that the legislation to regulate the motorized scooters on sidewalks? I think
Yes,
that'll become law. Yeah, that'll become law pretty soon, because we recognize that was one of the growing problems that pedestrians were facing.
yeah, because I think it is a state law, right, Speaker Saiki?
Yes.
It's a state
Yes.
law.
We just passed. We just passed.
Yes, thank you for doing that. It's just a matter of the sidewalks need to be available for pedestrians to walk on. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
We have Eduardo next, followed by Owen, and then Joanne.
Aloha and good evening. Thank you for having this town hall. I want to recognize that the city and the state share a commitment to addressing climate change. And one of the most important, cost-effective methods is the Beaky Bike Share Program. And we've seen that Beaky is in some jeopardy. And Mr. Mayor, if you could talk about what your administration is doing for Beaky and to support it, to expand it to communities beyond Honolulu. And if you yourself have ever ridden Beaky, and if you would take me up on an offer to ride a Beaky with me.
Well, I'll take you up on your offer. I think I'm scheduled to go out and do that. But at the end of the day here, we're going through analysis of the financials right now because Beaky was impacted as a result of COVID. And, and it was begun by the prior administration, but I think you've seen the complete streets and we continue to evolve in that, creating more bikeways. We're interested as island dwellers on creating as many, carbon neutral efforts as possible. And certainly intermodal is really part of that. So we're going to see what we have to do. That they've had a real rush lately and they seem to be having some kind of recovery. But we definitely want to be able to have our streets available to bikes as an alternative and other methods of intermodal. I mean, that's just part of the future. We saw a presentation just last week on bikes in complete streets. And Honolulu is just one of hundreds of cities now in the US. And I've looked at some major cities and what they've done. It's similar to what we're doing here, with the green paint and the what's the name of that word? The stuff that stands up. I always forget the name of the word, but anyway, I think we're trying to be as aggressive as we can with it. So I am one to support it. We'll see where we are with Beaky Bikes and their ability to survive. Right now, we feel
removal of the newspaper.
All right, next up we have Owen, followed by Joanne, and then Susan. Owen? Can you unmute, Owen? Go ahead, Owen.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Helping the homeless is great, but I do feel like we're missing a representative from law enforcement in this discussion. You mentioned a number of 6,000 homeless, and logic just makes me ask, how can such a small group of people be affecting the larger population so adversely? Law is an issue here, whether it's how it's written or how it's being enforced. If 500 people tomorrow tested positive for COVID, we'd lock this whole state down. And so 6,000 people is disrupting law-abiding, tax-paying people who do not have access to the public areas that they pay for. And we're going to sit here and talk about the programs that we're paying for to help these 6,000 people. I mean, that's very.
Let me just be clear here. First of all, 3,000 of the 6,000 people on the island of Oahu are in shelters, many of whom have been vaccinated. I can't tell you the exact number, but these are people, as you can imagine, who really don't want to be homeless, who are trying to aspire to get back, and they're protecting themselves, not like whatever. So you're dealing with about 3,000. If we were to break down that 3,000, there's probably 2,000 that are tied into drug addiction and mental illness and other things like that, chronic homeless, many of whom, I'm sure none of whom have probably been, or very few have been vaccinated. Maybe some have, I don't know. I doubt that. 1,000 of that 3,000 are people looking to, and this is coming from all of our work with the homeless service providers, trying to get into shelters.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, but it wasn't a COVID issue. I was just drawing an analogy of what we would do as a state. We can actually shut the state down for 500 people.
Yeah.
For now, like you're talking about like 2,000, 3,000 people. That's affecting us so much. You can hear about how much it's affecting everyone.
That's right.
Homeless people are doing, I mean, I can walk through downtown any day of the week and see someone literally in broad daylight shooting themselves up with a needle.
Yep, you can see that. You can see lewd behavior. You can see people threatening people. You can see fist fights out in the open. And I've seen that all. That's why we're taking the approach we're taking. There's no denial. Let me give you a quick perspective of something I used to talk about in my former job. If you took the homeless number in this state and just said statewide, it was 15,000 people. Could be less, could be more, but somewhere around there. At the end of the day, that's still about 1% of our population. Yet for the last decade, and I can assure you, in a situation that represents less than 1% of our population, in research study after research study, because we were always doing that to stay relevant as a news organization, and even since I've come into office, homelessness is number one, other than what's happened with COVID, the impact of it, and the need to rebuild our economy. Other than that transcendent situation, which has impacted all of us, homelessness, when you look at the core issues in operating the city, and even for that matter, the state, right now ranks as number one. That's why tonight I asked Anton, and glad Scott was on the phone, and we're addressing it to anticipate the fact that we realize how oppressive it is, how threatening it is, whether it's from COVID or other kinds of things that have been talked about tonight. And we need to do something about it. We're finally getting ourselves set up to do it, because what's gone on hasn't worked. And so we needed a pivot, we needed resources, we needed planning. None of this stuff you can just simply do overnight. And it's not easy, but I can promise you this, that a year from tonight, if we're successful in doing what we're doing, you'll feel a lot differently than you do right now. And I don't think you could say that over the last decade, because it's been an unacceptable situation for a very long time. So I hear you about the threat of COVID and 500 people, but we're trying to do something about it. And it's just not the kind of thing you can just snap your fingers at.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. We have another question from Joanne Ochi. Joanne, can you turn on your mic and ask a question? If you're not, okay, go ahead. Joanne, your question is not, your mic is still off. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I've been dealing with this homeless issue for a long time, and basically I've heard the same story over and over. So hopefully I'm having high hopes that you will be somebody that changes, but part of me doesn't feel that way. I dealt with, what's that guy's name? Mark Alexander. And I did talk to Anton Krucky, and of course, Scott is a relative of mine. And I also talked to Sharon Moriwaki. The main thing I think the problem is that there's no laws. There's no strict laws that say the homeless cannot sit and lie on any street anywhere. I'm not talking about the homeless that maybe lost their job. I'm talking about the criminals and the mentally ill. They're a danger to us. So why do you allow people who are dangerous to us to be on the street? Get them off, first of all, because they are breaking the law. Secondly, the parks are.
Joanne, would you agree though that there are law-abiding homeless people?
No, that's what I said. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the criminal ones and the drug addicts that are out, especially at Mo'iliili. I drive there and I sit across the street and I watch them. They wreak havoc. That park is terrible. I see what they do. There's a laundromat there. They hang all their laundry on the fence. We can't even use it. Okay, that's not acceptable. So I call the police like 5-6 times a day. I just do it because I know they're not going to do anything, but I'm just trying to prove a point. They're not supposed to be there. What about us? You're not looking at protecting us. Where is our freedom to walk out? You know where I go to walk, Ala Moana and Kahala Moana. I have to waste gas to go to these places to take a walk because I can't walk around my community. So why are you not protecting us first? I don't care about, the homeless. I think you need to put them in an institution, the drug addicts and the criminals. You should take care of them there, not on the streets. And you have to give the police more power too. Right now, the police all their power is taken away, so they don't want to do anything.
Well, that's, you know what, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. That's why there's been a change in leadership, and you can anticipate different police action. I've said it a couple of different times. Okay. So, I can appreciate your cynicism. I really can, because it's gone on for so long. I don't know what I can say in defense of that, other than we're trying to do the very best we can on multiple levels. And I think you'll see a difference. And I do agree with you. You should be able to walk in your own neighborhood. You shouldn't have to get in a car and go to a public mall so you could take a walk. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong.
But actually, if you go down to Hawaii Kai or you go down to Kahala, it seems people with a lot of money get rid of their homeless there in Hawaii Kai. Did I mention that? But if I drive around there, there's not a lot of homeless there. Why are they left in Mo'iliili? That's my question.
So, Joanne, Senator Moriwaki has convened a group multiple times focusing just on Mo'iliili. And And so we're preparing our responses to those meetings, and you're going to see some actions there shortly.
Oh, no, can you give me a time frame? Because I've heard this shortly. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? Could you give me like a time frame?
I think
You know,
you'll
when
see
you go to
something. I think you'll see something from the city within a month and a half.
month and a half, okay.
Thank
I'll,
you.
I'll wait for a month and a half and see what's been done, because I've been told the same story before. So if
Well, you know
I
what?
stop,
Part of my reservation on coming on a call like this is precisely that. But I know my role as mayor is to listen to people like you. But the fact is, what are we supposed to say? We've tried to come on tonight and give you an intelligent explanation of the circumstance of what we're trying to do. So if you want to express your cynicism, go ahead and do it. I'm telling you, you're not any more fed up than we are about the circumstance, and we're going to do something about it.
it's just that I don't see everybody working as a team. When I ask the police, they say, oh, talk to the city and county, talk to your mayor. When I talk to the city and county, they say it's the ACLU that stops you. It's like, it's,
Joanne, I think the point being made is that you have a team now at the city and county of Honolulu that is working more closely with the state. And so we need to give it time to work out some of these issues. And so I'm
waited 7 years.
I'm hopeful as a resident of Waikiki, which is the neighboring district to yours. So we have another question from Susan.
Stella, can I just add something? I think that one of the reasons why we may have seen an increase in homelessness is because the working relationship over the prior 8 years between the state and the city was disjointed on this issue, and but that has changed with Mayor Blangiardi here, with Anton here, because we were never able to have a call like this over the past 8 years. But I think this is going to make a big difference. And Joanne, I think that the legislature has weighed in over the past couple of years. We have worked to fund more beds for mental health patients, and we have also given more tools to law enforcement and first responders to divert people to mental health services. So there have been a lot of strides made over the past few years, and this one in particular, this working with the city now, is big.
I also, one more thing before you move on. I just think that you can't keep enabling them as well. I mentioned to Senator Moriwaki, why don't you get them to go out to work? There was in another state, I think it was Utah, where they would pick them up in the morning. The ones that are able to work, pick them up 9 to 5, they go to work, pick up like in Mo'ilili, pick up all the leaves on the ground, repaint the bathroom they destroyed, go around the island and pick up, the trash, cut grass, and pay them $10 an hour. Then they can get $80 a day. By the end of the week, they have $400. They could pay for part of their rent and part of their food and pay us back. We can't keep giving them money. We don't have money to give. They need to learn. They need to learn to be a citizen that is participating in this society.
Thank you,
Thank you.
We have next Susan Matsudo, followed by Don Martin.
Hi, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, I just have 3 different topics, and I hope it's quick and it's small compared to the homelessness. But one of my pet peeves that I see around the community is, for example, Alamana Boulevard, right across the federal building. I see that, I don't know if it's the state or the city, planting these trees right along the sidewalk that we know 10, 20, 30 years from now, the roots are going to go into the streets, the sidewalks is going to crack. Why do we do this to ourselves? And the roads are going to crack. Why do we plant trees where we know that we don't get them the opportunity to grow? Why don't we just do shrubs or something like that that's more easily maintained? I'm not against beautification, but sometimes I think we're planting trees where we're not giving them the ability to grow. And for example, Kapiolani Boulevard right here, Kapiolani and Kaheka, they had to sort of like cut out the sidewalk because the tree roots are getting into that. And the roots are eventually going to get into our sewer system and our water system. I mean, why do we do this to ourselves? It's all over the state. I even, my mom is Alamana. I live in Eva, and even in the Eva community, The city does this. We do this to ourselves. I don't understand why we do that. Number two, here in Kapilani, we have so many condominiums coming up. Can our sewer system actually maintain the number of buildings that are coming up here? And thirdly, I missed the 2 p.m. city council thing, but my mom lives in an older building, and this whole life safety evaluation, it is going to cost money no matter which way we do it. From what I understand, there's a lot of insurance companies that are kind of like twisting people's arms down, and they're saying, if you're not going to do the sprinklers, we may not insure your building. And you know how many elderly are living in these older buildings and they're on fixed income, and you think they're going to be able to afford this? You're going to have more homeless on the streets. So I just want to see if you folks have any comments to any of those three things.
Three broad areas. Anyone want to take it, Sharon?
Well, I would tell you right now, on the sewer part, we don't give permits unless there's sewer capacity. So to at least from the city and county, the Department of Planning and Permitting, and on that element. So if there's a building going on that required our permit, it has the capacity. That's probably the best I could answer. Trees are a beautiful thing, and I would like to think that we're planting trees. I know that that wasn't true historically, because I know a lot of streets have been ripped up in a lot of places because of the roots, just as you described. I know there's a different awareness going along with all of our bike lanes and climate change and complete streets to plant the proper kinds of trees who have root structures that don't disrupt the sidewalk or the streets the way they have done historically, because it was just before, in order to create a great canopy, they would put something in, but on the ground, it was just as invasive. And actually, we've seen lots of evidence of that. So trees in the past are one thing. I've been told by a lot of tree planting that's going on now. It's what that, I found out the city has 500 arborists. They're really in tune with doing that stuff now. So that's the best I can tell you. Other than I know just recently they were going to plant monkey pods for the very reason you just talked about, and decided not to, and they came up with to plant an alternative. It was a whole discussion about that. I was pleased to see that. So on those two things, I think I could address it. So
the sprinkler system. So I think that Ala Moana Boulevard is probably under the state's jurisdiction. So we can ask, Sharon and I can ask what's going on with the tree planting. Although I also suspect that the state does also receive federal funds to maintain these kinds of roads, and part of those funds need to be used for beautification projects. So I'm thinking it was probably this planting program is tied to that, but we'll look into it.
Thank you. Yeah, please take a look at it, because the trees are, they're fairly young, but when I saw them planting those, I'm like, oh my God, are we even thinking about the future and what these trees are going to cause down the road, which is going to cost us money to rip out the sidewalks and redo, the roadways. We're not thinking. I'm all for beautification, but we need to find something better that will give whatever we plant there the opportunity to grow nicely without affecting things in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to have last questioners, John, Martin, Benjamin, Shane, Ariana, and Lloyd. John, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I was just curious, with the influx of all the apartments, especially in the Kaka'ako area, if there is talk about building any schools for all the families moving into the area, and what that timeline looks like.
Do you want to? I think Deepak is on the line, the call. Deepak, are you here?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am.
So Deepak is the director of the Hawaii Community Development Authority, HCDA. It's a state agency that has jurisdiction over the Kaka'ako district. And I think Deepak, do you want to do you have an update on any plans for schools?
Yes, Speaker Saiki, we've been working for a number of years with the Department of Education on Pohukaina Elementary School, as you know, and I think there have been some challenges at Department of Education. We are working through with it. I mean, I think with the land owned by DLNR, and they were working with HHFDC, which is the housing agency, our sister agency, on that Pohukaina Street, went through design. They had some funding, but for some reason that I never got an explanation from Department of Education, that project came to an abrupt halt. So I'm still trying to find out exactly what has happened and how we can jumpstart that project.
Okay. So the need for schools in Kakako is on our radar screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Shane, Benjamin, I'm sorry, Benjamin and then Shane.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, this is Ben from Kakako, Kekilohana. I've sent pictures and emails to Saiki's office. I finally just got some contact information just tonight for Anton. But the developer here just removed 2 telephone poles last week, and they're about to repave the street of Ilani Vai that was mentioned earlier by Jeff. So they're not going to stripe though. They have no plans of striping it. If it gets striped, that'll help stop the perpendicular parking that goes on across the street. That helps make this a one-way, which makes it dangerous for people going in and out. It's more like a one-way street where people have to be courteous and let somebody else through sometimes, which is, like you said earlier, an accident waiting to happen. And that'll make it more of a two-way street, which is what it's supposed to be. So if the city and county can stripe it after it's repaved, that would definitely help a lot.
Well, Ben, which street did you say?
Ilani Vai Street, the one right beside Ward Avenue. It comes into Ward Avenue. So we're right at Ward Avenue and Ilani Vai Street.
I promise you tomorrow I'll get a hold of DTS and we'll have them get on there and take a look at that, okay?
Okay.
Della, how long is this going to go? I've got a thing at 7 o'clock I'm supposed to speak at.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are actually wrapping it up now.
I really don't want to jump off, and I can probably be a little bit late for the other, but I just wanted to at least put that out there.
No, so to all the folks on here, I apologize that I'm going to have to maybe wrap this up in a little right now. We do have your questions from the pre-registration, and we will provide them to the speakers. Also, we're keeping a track of the comments as well. I do want to leave some time for some closing comments before Mayor has to jump off. So if we can do that now, I'll start off with Mayor, if it's okay to start off with you. And then
yeah, I just want to express, and I know I kind of got a little animated with Joanne, that we're just as frustrated over some of the circumstances, but our job right now is not to be frustrated, to be problem solvers, and we're trying to do that the very best. And I just want to reiterate what's already been said tonight, how much I appreciate Speaker Saiki, Senator Moriwaki, who I've known, Scott, anybody else, and the collaboration, the collaborative efforts we're trying to make to work together to do what is expected of us in office here, which is, if I were to say it very simply, is to try to make Oahu a great place to live, work, and play, and taking everything and anything that comes under that vision, if you will. I mean, it's that clean and that simple for us, and we're trying to address a lot of problems. Just hang in there with us and know that it's hard for us even sometimes not to be cynical at trying to overcome some of the things that we see. And the first question I've asked many times is, why wasn't this already done? Why didn't they do it before? That's where we are, and we're going to do the very best we can. I thank everybody for being on this call tonight. Thank you. And Scott, thank you for the opportunity to be on this call.
thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn to Speaker, and then we'll wrap up with Senator Moriwaki. Speaker?
Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us this evening. It's just really important for Senator Moriwaki, the mayor, and myself to just hear directly from residents, to hear your questions, your concerns about what's going on in the community. We all live in this area as well, so we experience the same frustrations that you do. This morning I went to get a biki bike and I had to walk around some people who were sleeping on the sidewalk in that area. So we see this firsthand as well, and we, as the mayor mentioned, we are just as frustrated as the residents are. So we just, we want to be able to work with you. We're going to work well with the city. We just have to work through these problems. So thanks again for joining us.
And Senator Moriwaki, if you can wrap this up for us.
Yes, aloha and thank you, everyone. As you see, all the providers as well as all of us are, and not the cliche of it takes a village, but it really does. And what you see here tonight is everyone working together. We know the common problems. We're all working together. It's really complex, but we're not stopping, and we're committed to moving ahead and moving forward. And as you saw, the citizen patrols, the business security watches, getting landlords to open their homes, all of that is important. All of us working together. No one can solve this alone. And I'm really pleased. Thank you, Mayor, for joining us. And Anton, the city and state really do have a good partnership with your administration. And we've seen examples of moving quickly on a number of fronts when problems are addressed, and we call upon you. So mahalo, and I think this is a great start, and we all working together, I think really thank everyone taking the time. This hour and a half has been wonderful. Mahalo.
Yeah. And Senator, I'm going to go on a limb and say that we should continue to sponsor these virtual town meetings.
Do that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do that.
Thank you all for being on this call. I certainly learned a lot. Very grateful to be able to hear from Mayor and Anton and Scott Morishige and from my own colleagues. Mahalo to all of you for sending in your questions. They are being circulated among the speakers. Thank you, Shane, Ariana, Lloyd, Alan. I'm sorry we could not get to you, but drop your questions in the chat before you leave, and those will get to the speakers again. And on that note, thank you. Again, this was a tremendous experience, and I think the partnership between the city and the state is something that we can all look forward to, and something that I know I'm looking forward to. So mahalo for all of you being here, and have a good and wonderful and safe night. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank
Good
you,
moderator.
We'll get that question. I think that would be a question that could be asked of the police.
How long is the chat box going to be open to accept more questions?
As long as we're here, the chat box is open.
Pardon?
Can't you copy it? You can copy it, yes? Who is moderating? Della.
Yes.
Copy the chat, and then we can look at it after.
Shane, are you working at summer school right now? Go.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Bye.
Thank you.